Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Life Pre-Race. Full house here. We got Joshua Birch from Joshua Birch Motorsports, Ben Schneider from Ben Schneider on YouTube, Daniel Zeri from Racers, the Girls Behind the Helmet, Matthew Bro, and myself, Joe Samniego. And we see a couple comments in the chat room. Amber, you definitely caught us on time because we're just starting. Good to see you in the chat room. We encourage everyone to participate in the chat room. And of course, if you like what you see, be sure to invest in us through Patreon. Call on the show, Mark and Robin, help us pay the bills, keep us on the air, and you can do a one-time contribution through Buy Me a Coffee for the Grid Network or for any one of us on there. We'll love to have coffee, tea, whatever drink we desire, Orange Mountain Dew, even a potential option. With that said, one of the big races and one of the big stories leading into this weekend has to be the W Series.
That's right, Joe. I'm all out of Orange Mountain Dew today, but I still have the bottle left over from last week's show here on my desk, I think. But anyway, that's beside the point. Let's get into the W Series and preview that after a chaotic start to the weekend. Of course, the W Series has been in the news for financial reasons that aren't so great, but we'll get to that in just a minute here. Today, we did have qualifying to set the field for Sunday's race. This time, the chaos was on the track with heavy rain and multiple red flags. Marta Garcia was the fastest when qualifying was red flagged. The session did not resume after that. Vaiska Visser, Alice Powell, Belen Garcia, and Jessica Hawkins round out the top five. So, Daniel, tomorrow the forecast calls for more rain. Which drivers do you think in the top five had the best chance to win in the wet conditions, especially considering Jamie Chadwick is further down the grid?
Hi, everyone. As you mentioned, it's been quite chaotic, this qualifying. But Marta Garcia was really fast, and she got her second pole position of her W Series career last time. And also, ironically, it's the second time also on a street circuit. For the first time in 2019, in the inaugural W Series season, she was also on pole at the Norris String, a really tricky but shorter track compared to Singapore. And she did manage to convert the pole position into a race win, so that will be interesting. But also, she was really fast today in the rain. So, and she said actually in post qualifying press conference that she actually prefers tomorrow's weather to be rainy. So she was really feeling good in the rain. She actually found also some grip even when the conditions were worsening, because only Marta, Vaiska Visser, and Belen Garcia were the three drivers that managed to improve their lap times even after the conditions were getting worse. So I think those three might have found something in the setup for tomorrow. But I would always say that in the rain, especially in low grip conditions, the Finnish driver Emma Kymäläinen is really always someone to watch. She had been not the easiest weekend so far, because yesterday she had a brake failure in free practice and only had literally 3 laps in a track that you have to learn from scratch. So not great when you've never been there. To not get practice. And today they had kind of another issue during the start of qualifying, so her car wasn't ready when the others went out, so she missed those couple of crucial minutes when the green flag was waved that they started qualifying. So when she went out on track, conditions were much worse, and she couldn't really do much. But she's still P10. So I think if it's raining and if she finally gets the same amount of track time as the others, she could not be ruled out altogether.
Absolutely, and I do agree with you completely. I think we've got a comment in the chat room as well, so I'll put my glasses on. It says, hey, yo, what's up? Hello, Dismas as well. Dismas has been joining me in the watch-alongs as well on the YouTube chat, I've noticed in the past couple of sessions as well. So he knows exactly how I'm doing. Hopefully you're both still good as well. And a bit tired after today, to be fair, as well. Up all hours, and I'm sure as well the W Series has been the strange one. We didn't see practice, and we saw a couple of spins in that as well from what we got reported to. And Daniel's been absolutely fantastic, giving us all information as well from the drivers as well that they've told him and he's told us as well, so that we get to know what happened throughout the weekend. Personally, I think as well with the top five, Alice Powell's always good in the wet. She's British, which means that she's done a go-kart career mainly in wet conditions. We all know that the Brits are great drivers in the wet weather as well, so that's a good positive that she starts third on the grid. She's got a nice run down towards turn one tomorrow if it rains. Marta Garcia has been really impressive as well, and of course, Bajtskevisa, it's in her blood almost as well, driving in these slippy conditions as well. So personally, I'm going to go, my top pick would be for better run in the field, Alice Powell, but I think we all agree as well, Jamie Chadwick, even though she starts 8th on the grid after a wet qualifying, we haven't really had that much wet running in W Series before, so we could see Chadwick struggle, but we could still see her finish easily in the top three if others in front of her make mistakes, and not even deliberate mistakes as in it's a driver error, just like they float off the road if there's aquaplaning or something like that on the circuit. Tomorrow's race is going to be a really, really difficult one for everybody to try and get through safe.
And looking down the rest of the grid in positions 6 through 10, we have Abby Poling, Sarah Moore, Jamie Chadwick, Fabian Molvend, and Emma Kimmelainen. Now, Chadwick has exactly a 75-point lead in the standings. She needs to maintain 75 points or more following this race in order to clinch her third W Series championship. So, Josh, we'll go to you first here. Very simple question. Does Chadwick wrap up the championship this weekend in Singapore?
Yes, but only because I don't think we'll get to America and Mexico. I don't think that's going to happen with the funding problems we've had this weekend as well. It is, 2-3 weeks until we get to America. That's a long time for getting all the cars shipped over there as well and get them all set up. So I think Jamie will wrap it up, but due to the fact that we won't race in the last 2 races of the year.
I would actually say that no, Jamie will not wrap up the championship this weekend, only because she's starting a little bit behind. Of course, she had the pace today, but she got stuck behind another driver in the sector 3 and in her only fast lap today. So I would say that she needs to finish ahead of Bajtske, of Alice, and Abe Pulling, and all of 3 of them were better today. And Jamie, I also followed Jamie in her season in Formula Regional European Championship in 2020 when W Series was not racing. And due to COVID, the season was a little bit happening later in the year. So we did get a lot of rainy races, and Jamie, I remember she told me that despite her being British, she was not great in the rain. So she does prefer dry weather, and only for that reason, I believe that she will wrap up the championship in Kota. I hope that they will definitely go there. These cars are not the ones that will be shipped to Kota, because these cars are the New Zealand ones from the Toyota Racing Series, while the W Series cars are already, as far as I understand, on their way to Kota. So hopefully the financial situation will sort out, at least for the end of this season, and then they will probably have to do some major changes to get on the region for next year. But hopefully they will get to finish the season, and Jamie, in my opinion, will wrap up the championship at Kota.
And Daniel, can I just ask, it was when we had the wet race in Hungary, wasn't it, that Alice Powell took the victory, I think, last season, I think? Yeah, good. I couldn't quite remember if that was the right case or not.
Well, last year, the only wet race was Spa, and Emma
won the Spa,
yeah.
It's so many different racetracks that we've had this year. It's hard to keep up about where we are. And it's been, through 2 months gap since the last race as well, end of July. So there's that to sort out with the calendar next year, if we even get to next year.
Yeah, good point. 90 days from after the last race, and it was the biggest break in season for any season in W Series so far. Not very usual start, but yeah.
Sorry about that, Daniel. Go ahead.
No, I mean that was not the most useful start, but yeah, there you have it.
I'm noting that down for the commentary tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think everybody needs to calm down about Jamie Chadwick. I mean, she did finish second in the last race, so it's I think this could be the start of a bit of a slump for her. We'll see if she can recover from this. But of course, I'm joking. She's had just a phenomenal year. It might not happen this weekend, but I think she is certainly pretty much the champion-elect already. We can say that for sure. We have a comment from Amber here. Daniel, I guess I'll throw this over to you. Does Belen Garcia have a chance this weekend in Singapore?
In my opinion, yes, but maybe not for a win, but for a podium probably. She was really fast both yesterday in dry conditions and today in wet conditions, and she also said that she was feeling very, very well in the car. She had a bit of a spin in qualifying, but that was due to aquaplaning. Not much that she could have done. And just let me highlight how great everyone on the grid was today in such difficult conditions. We haven't seen many single-seater races going on in these kind of wet conditions. How difficult it was. And we haven't seen any major mistakes on anyone that hit the wall today. So pretty great driving from everyone today. But going back to the question, I think Belen was really good. Great pace on yesterday on dry, and she was one of the three drivers that I mentioned that also managed to improve their times on their second attempt when the rain was heavier. So maybe she has found something in her weather setup.
Well, you guys both kind of mentioned it. Yesterday, Reuters reported that Jamie Chadwick said drivers have been briefed on W Series finances. There were little details on drivers' reactions, though Chadwick did say it was really cool to see how much the series means to everyone. Catherine Bond-Moore told Telegraph that she was having lots of conversations and is optimistic about the series' survival. Daniel, I know you said it came out of the blue because this year we heard great news about more partners joining the series, especially after Miami. So we'll throw this one to you first. Assuming they return in 2023, what key changes could potentially be made for the W Series in order to help keep it afloat and still be free for the drivers to compete?
Yeah, that's the big question. I remember at the beginning of the season, at preseason testing, that Catherine Bond-Moore told me that obviously the cancelled season was a bit of an issue for them. But she was expecting to break even in 5 years' time. So I believe that in some, they did expect not to make a profit this year. And from what we've read from reports, because we don't have much of a insight into the financial situation right now, except for what has been published in these couple of days. The debt that has been described, it's not that big for a champion, for a motor racing in motor racing terms. So I believe that, and also they mentioned that they already had some kind of agreement with an American sponsor that fell through when it was already signed, so that they had some kind of these kind of issues. Coming into next year, obviously, the fact that they are free to enter, that's not a help. But I think it's one of the most important features of the championship. So if they would change that, in my opinion, it would become like a Formula Regional Championship like any others, which doesn't make much sense, in my opinion. So I believe that they need to get on board some more sponsors and hope probably some try to change their whole business operation a little bit more focused on some major sponsors, because I know that they're trying hard to do that, and the global situation is not helping. I think also it's a bit down to bad luck, because of course they start in 2019. 2020 was already a big problem with COVID, and now with all the expenses they had, the budgeting, and they were budgeting this at the beginning of the season when prices were not this high for shipping, for example, so travel and stuff. So I believe there's a big bad luck factor in this. But yeah, they just have to find some big sponsors willing to throw some money into the teams next year.
Yeah, in my opinion as well, I think they need to restrict the calendar to European events, not go abroad, because we've seen they've done it this year and it's cost them big time. To the point where we don't even know if they're running in the next 2 races as well. They've done it here in Singapore, and it's been an absolute nightmare. Even qualifying, even though it had nothing to do with airing as well, qualifying was just a mess from the point of view of the standings as well. I think we need faster cars. I think the cars that we've got at the moment are too slow, and it's not really entertaining racing as well when they're struggling to overtake. We need to introduce some sort of push to pass as well, because what we've been seeing a lot this year is a lot of trains forming and a lot of carousel racing where they're just going round and round and round and can never pass each other. And that's not entertainment value. That's not sporting value. It dilutes your product an awful lot. So we need faster cars. We need an ability where they can go slightly longer than the half-an-hour race. I think we need 45-minute races plus the 1 lap. Same format as what we have for Formula E. And I also think as well that the positioning of the races need to be looked at once again, because tomorrow it's on just before Formula One's race. But I liked it in the gap between FP3 and qualifying. It was put on max publicity, but it's kind of like they went and did one hand behind the back because they put it on Sky Sports F1 purely to get the cash. But they need to give it another form of freedom. I think after the race has been done live, I think they should put it on YouTube for free. I think their social media presence needs to increase a lot. I think their live timing feature as well that everybody uses, if you're a diehard fan of things, your live timing needs to be better. Your online services need to be better. I think there's a major uphaul that can be done. And a crucial thing as well to boost popularity is they need to get it so that it's on F1 TV. It's a different contract because Whisper, which was with Channel 4 and David Coulthard and Jake Humphrey's company is Whisper. They have the monopoly over the broadcasting because they create the wraparound coverage. Formula One produces the TV pictures as well, and W Series get a payment of that. They pay Formula One, and then Whisper pay W Series to produce the wraparound coverage. But I think Formula One TV needs to get involved and get their hands around it as well, and bring it into the fold of Formula 2, Formula 3 and Porsche Super Cup in that situation as well, and just sort of make sure that it's felt more at home, because right now it feels like Formula 1's got a great product with F1, F2, F3, even the Porsche Super Cups, and then we've got W Series just sort of slotted in as well as the ugly stepsister, and just it can't fit in, and it's not fair. It's not fair. I agree. Me and Daniel said this a few days ago in our chat as well. We think they went to F1 too soon. I know Daniel's got a strong point on that as well. They should have stuck with DTM for another year. But we're here now. We've got to make the best of it. I think put your content on F1 TV, which has got millions of subscribers around the world as well. It just makes sense. Just have a logical assessment of it as well and work with people, not against them as well. I think W Series has always felt a bit standoffish as well in terms of the fact it put a lot of people's backs up. Many people see it as, oh, well, we don't want that because it's segregation racing. Women can race with men. Yes, they can. No one's denying that. The W Series isn't saying that this is the Formula One for women. No, it's not. The W Series is designed to get female drivers, young female drivers, into Formula One and the bigger series because F1 teams aren't giving them the leg up. And the problem we've been having is Jamie Chadwick, who's such a fantastic driver, is a Williams development driver, yes, but she's won the W Series twice now, is about to win it for the third time, and she's still stuck in W Series and in the lower formulas. There's been no seat for F2. So it's a combination of W Series method is broken and the system is broken for not getting women into the seats. It's like we've come up with an advertisement for campaign. We just can't flog the product. So it's a bit ridiculous at the moment as well. And no wonder they're having a cash flow problem, because you go to W Series and it's nothing. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. It's just nothing. So that needs to be fixed. And we need to get it much more publicly accessible for everybody to watch as well. And I think we've got a roaring trade. Faster cars, better TV deal, get drivers into other series, bang. it'll work and everyone will fall in love with it.
If I could just follow up quickly on what you said, I think you made a lot of very good points. A lot of them I do agree with them. I just don't agree with the faster cars, because so far we are scouting in karting and Formula 4 championships, because of course we have a lack of female talents in Formula 3 level globally. So I believe that still this kind of Formula 3 regional level was well marked, was the right level, the right first step if we wanted to break that glass ceiling. But except for this only one point that I do not agree with you, all the others I do agree with you. And I do believe that, as you mentioned, that going with Formula One, I do understand why they wanted to do that after 2020, because they wanted to be back bigger. But it was, in my opinion, the wrong move, because they went too big too fast, and if you really needed a smaller calendar, European calendar with a accessible yet professional environment like DTM, or if it wasn't DTM, I mean the GT World Challenge, you name it, but with a more controlled environment where the people also can be close to the cars and to the drivers. Because I remember, for example, the season finale at Brands Hatch in 2019, a lot of young girls and young women were there in the paddock taking pictures with the drivers. This is how you build the fan base that you need when you're a new sport. You don't. Formula One paddock is the most inaccessible thing in sport that you will ever see. This is not how you establish yourself when you don't have that fan base yet. And then, of course, they made the lives of people all around the world very difficult last year to watch the races, because if you were not in the UK, you didn't have a free-to-air or even a broadcast deal. So especially in the US, you had a hard time, but also so many countries in Europe that didn't have the broadcast deal. So they were a little bit too British centric in the TV deals, and they know that. I mentioned that with the management. They tried their best this year, but still it's not perfect, and still it's too late, because now they had to build that kind of audience before going big with Formula One. But a lot of points. I mean, we could discuss it for a couple of hours, but we don't have the time now.
Well, one final question that Amber asked in the chat room: could W Series become part of the Road to Indy? I think that's an interesting concept, but you would have to really shift the base from Europe over to America here, because obviously the Road to Indy is based to try to get drivers into the IndyCar series. And ironically enough, that's where we may see Jamie Chadwick next season. We'll see how some tests and some deals go on that front. But I think it's an interesting idea. But right now, the W Series is primarily based in Europe, so I don't see how they would be able to have that strong of a connection with the IndyCar series and the Road to Indy here in the United States. Well, Daniel, before we let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to pick a winner for the W Series. And Josh, I guess since we're doing the W Series right now, we'll have you give yours as well as you take a look at the pick a winner standings. I've got to do a little bit of work to catch up to Kobe, Joe, Adam, and Alex there leading the standings. So I'll give my picks at the end of the show. But for you, Daniel, right now, who are you picking to win the W Series race tomorrow in Singapore?
I'm gonna go with Marta Garcia, and she will, in my opinion, she will convert her second pole position into her second career victory in W Series.
I will go with Alice Powell to take victory tomorrow as well. I've just got that feeling.
All right, well, I will save mine for the end of the show when we all give our picks. But Daniel, thank you so very much for coming on and explaining a little bit more about the situation to us, and as always for previewing the W Series. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you on the Women in Motorsports program later next week.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And of course, W Series there in Singapore, because we also have Formula One in Singapore for the Singapore Grand Prix. And already a lot of drama around the Formula One world champion, Max Verstappen, and his team. Entering this weekend, we heard reports and rumors that two teams may have exceeded the budget cap last year. One of them, Aston Martin, not getting a whole lot of attention, but of course, last year wasn't exactly the greatest year. The other one, potentially, Red Bull. Christian Horner denies it. really been strong, calling the other teams spreading defamatory rumors. Today, Max Verstappen twice could have claimed the pole, didn't get the job done. Ben, are we seeing mind games being deployed to distract Red Bull? Or could Red Bull be in legitimate trouble?
Well, I must admit, I don't know the rules and regulations like the back of my hand. I know Josh does, so I'll defer to Josh on that one in terms of how much trouble they could be in. I do have to say it is kind of amusing that, Aston Martin may have exceeded the budget cap and they're still towards the back end of the midfield here. It certainly it hasn't been a great final year for Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. I know we've been wanting to see him take some steps forward as well, but Aston Martin, are a little bit further down than we would have expected them to be this year, I think. And then you hear that they might have actually gone over budget. And Red Bull, I think, are the more significant one, obviously, because Max Verstappen has pulled away to such a significant championship. We all know how epic of a title fight we saw last season between Red Bull and Mercedes, between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. But, I have to say, qualifying was very strange this morning. I think the reason that Red Bull aborted the second time was because they were concerned about not having enough fuel in the car to provide a fuel sample. And, I'm not exactly sure what happened on the first run. I don't know if Verstappen just, got loose and ended up having to abort the lap because there was no chance that he was going to take the pole position. But, it did seem very strange. And obviously, we've seen Verstappen win from 10th and 14th this season and, further down the grid than you would normally expect the winner to come from. So it's not something that he, we are totally able to write him off now as, not being able to win tomorrow and having 0% chance to do that. He certainly can, but he's certainly not in the position that he would have liked to have been in going into qualifying today. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I don't know if mind games are being played or, obviously, there's a chance that Verstappen could lock up the championship this weekend. I know he's, going to do it at some point. It's only a matter of when, not if. It's much more likely that it happens in Japan. I think I even, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Helmut Marko made some strange comments that, you'd almost want to delay it until Japan because of the relationship that they still have with Honda, and that would be fitting for Honda to be at their home race and have a championship clinch there. But there's been a lot of very strange things coming out of the Red Bull camp this week, and I don't know, maybe Josh can make a little bit more sense out of it than I can. But it was very strange today to see that.
I'm glad I'm sitting down. That's all I've got. Before I get into it, I think there's a question in the chat as well. Can Max Verstappen DNF and the title changes next race at Japan? No. Max is so far ahead in the title now that it would literally be a miracle if Latifi, sorry, that's because of the comment there. If Leclerc, it would be a miracle if Latifi got the championship. I can tell you that right now. It would be a miracle if Leclerc got the championship or Perez either. Now it is literally a question of when, not if.
Every team except Williams disqualified from the World Championship.
Yes.
That's how Latifi wins it.
Pointless Latifi as well wins it over.
Oh, wait a second. Albon actually has points this year, right?
As does De Vries. Yeah, Albon's got 4 and De Vries has got 2. So it'll take a major miracle for Latifi to win it. So no, Max is going to be the champion regardless of when he does it as well. He only needs to outscore Leclerc by 22 points and Perez by 12 here this weekend for him to do so. But Leclerc starts on pole, Perez starts second, Verstappen starts 8th. So there's that little conundrum as well. And he couldn't complete the last lap despite being faster because he had less than the required fuel limit left if he'd done the extra lap. So he had to box in the lap, and it did hurt because he would have got pole position. So Red Bull, because they fueled him up at the start of the session, just to go out throughout the entire session as well and come in for a quick pit stop from Inters to Slicks because it was a crossover point as well. He had to run the risk of doing laps and running out of fuel, and that's exactly what happened. You're right, Ben. He did make a mistake coming out of turn 21. Verstappen on his first flying lap almost put it in the wall and went down on 2 tenths as well. Going on then with this mind game situation, it's not much mind games are being played at Red Bull. No, it's more mind games being played between the team principals as well as who exactly spent what last year in the budget cap. Now, last year it was a budget cap of $145 million across all the teams. That was a nice little round out they could do because they've got to work with the Italian money, the Swedish money, the British pound, and and the American dollar as well. So it was all decided to go under the American dollar because Liberty Media is an American company. They work in the US dollar. So this is what the FIA statement said as well. I brought it up on my phone as well. It said this was released yesterday after we discovered that 2 teams had suspected gone over the budget cap of 145 million. One by less than 5%, one over 5% as well. So the FIA statement reads, the FIA is currently finalising the assessment of the 2021 financial data submitted by all Formula One teams. Alleged breaches of the financial regulations, if any, will be dealt with according to the formal processes set out in the regulations. Now, the reason the budget is being done now, 10 months into the year, rather than the end of last season, is because that's how it's done. The budget for 2021 is looked over and awarded a certificate by the auditors of the companies that come in and look at every single F1 team, submit it to the FIA and Formula One, and say, look, these teams have done this. They're all in the budget cap. It's all good. So you get a certificate on Wednesday, this Wednesday. This is why this news is broken this weekend, because 2 teams have failed to do the budget and there have been asked questions on it. So this is why the news is broken in Singapore about last year's budget. Now, the FIA continue and say the FIA notes significant and unsustainable speculation and conjecture in relation to this matter, and reiterates that the assessment is ongoing and due process will be followed without consideration to any external discussions. So anything we're talking about in the media, the FIA aren't going to listen to. They're not going to comment on anything else bar this, because at the moment we don't have the right to know whose teams it is, just in case the fact that they are actually in the budget. This is all rumour at the moment. The 2 teams rumoured, as Joe said earlier on, Aston Martin and Red Bull Racing. We don't know which of the 2 spent more or less, but we can make an educated guess, considering that last year Red Bull's income was significantly more than that of Aston Martin. So Aston Martin couldn't have exceeded the budget of 145 million by more than 5% because they simply didn't earn enough, which means by logic and deduction, it's Red Bull who has spent over 5% of the 145 million. Now, if it is, that classifies as a major breach. And what that could be is a deduction of drivers and constructors' points from the 2022 campaign, suspension from 1 or more stages of competition in this year's season, 2022, suspension from the entire competition, that's a whole event as well, not just a single season. And this is where 2021 comes in. Exclusion from the championship. Now, that's not the 2022 season. That is exclusion from the 2021 World Championship. And the last one also is probably the more likely, a reduction of the cost cap for the 2022 budget year. Now, if it is exclusion from the championship that the FIA decide to go for, if it is either Aston Martin or Red Bull who have exceeded over 5% of the budget, then that could be extremely significant, because that means also first of all, the money that the teams got last year for the Constructors' Championship would change dramatically. Second of all, the Drivers' Championship would change dramatically. And if it is Red Bull, and this is a key thing as well, if Red Bull are found to have been over 5% of the budget, and they have found out that they spent that extra 5% on technical development of the racing car, then that is classified as cheating, no doubt, because you're spending extra money on the car where nobody else can. It's akin to having a pedal car and you've got an electric motor on the back. So if Red Bull are found out to have spent the extra 5% budget on technical development, then last year's championship gets blown wide open once again, because it could see both cars of Red Bull being disqualified, and that could put Hamilton back as the champion. It's insane that we're 10 months into this year and we're still talking about last year.
Hold on just 1 second, Josh. I want to clarify, because I'm thinking back to McLaren in 2007 with the espionage scandal, and McLaren were excluded from the Constructors' Championship, but that, of course, that happened before the end of the season, but Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, they were still allowed to fight for the Drivers' Championship. Could we see something similar like that here, where Red Bull lose second in the Constructors, but Verstappen's allowed to keep the Drivers' Championship?
In 2007, the only reason McLaren were excluded from that year's Constructors' Championship was because of Spygate, because the team had lied and got the information as well, and they'd lied to the FIA directly. There was nothing technical on the Ferrari car on the McLaren. So if McLaren in 2007 had put something that was exactly the same as the Ferrari on their car, then it would have impacted Hamilton and Alonso's 2007 Drivers' Championship campaign. The team was only hit because they were spying on Ferrari and they had the documents. That's the reason they lost the Constructors' Championship points. And they were allowed, because Hamilton and Alonso gave evidence, that's why they kept their Drivers' Championship points. In this situation, it will be different because if the Red Bull have used the extra 5% budget on technical development, that's benefited Verstappen and Perez's car. So in a sense, they've had the better experience of it. They've had a faster car than anybody else because of Red Bull's influence. So it would still be unfair and it would be cheating because they've gone out there with a faster car. Whether Verstappen and Perez knew about it, that doesn't really matter. The fact that that car that's been entered into the championship could have gone out with an extra power, an extra development as well that wasn't allowed in the budget cap, that brings in the cheating and that brings in the disqualification. And the rules say as well of both the drivers and the constructors championship. So it's still, it's unlikely to happen. But if Red Bull have spent over the 145 and it's a major break of over 5%, then we could see the possibility of last year's championship from both of them, constructors and drivers, getting stripped, both of them losing all their points, and Lewis Hamilton being crowned an 8-time champion as well, which sounds insane that it could be settled this way. But that, I must stress, is the extreme unlikely situation. What is more than likely is that they've exceeded the budget by over 5% in some other form of thing, which is not even to do with the car or the racing team, like hotel budgets, marketing, things like that. And they get ducked the difference in this year's budget as well. So they lose like 5 million, 6 million, whatever it is. But it is an impossible situation that if it was technical, because even last year we were all talking about how is that Red Bull so quick when Mercedes are slowing down. We couldn't work out how they were doing it. Now it looks like it could be technical. So there is a chance that Max and Red Bull could lose the title from last year. We will find out on Wednesday because that is when the certificates have been released. So we will know on Wednesday exactly what on earth is going on. But Christian Horner has been very much in the paddock saying, oh, no, it's not us. We were in the budget. In fact, we were way under the budget last year. Problem is, Formula One is the Piranha Club. I don't believe anybody. I never do.
And just real quick, I don't want to take too much time, Joe, because I know we've got more of a show. But just to clarify, Josh, that is the extreme, very unlikely scenario that would be the most extreme penalty, but it's probably not going to happen. Just to clarify, that's right.
It's probably not going to happen, but it is because it's a major breach of the budget cap, which is usually on the technical. Because it's very hard to go over 5% in marketing or hospitality or anything like that. Sure. Technical is the big one. So if they had been developing the car over the budget, then it opens up a whole other can of worms. And as Toto Wolff said it as well, this isn't just a small little story. This is a big wildfire. This is big if with a budget cap as well. So effectively, they have cheated. Whichever two teams have gone over the budget, they have cheated as well. And I'm reminded of the old Top Gear thing as well, when James May once went over the budget of one of the cars, and Jeremy Clarkson said, well, one wise man, an idiot, and a cheat. That's pretty much how the paddock is this weekend. Mercedes is the wise man, Ferraris are the idiots, and Red Bulls are the cheats. That's how it looks like at the moment.
And got a couple of comments in the chat room. This came early on when you were answering questions. Will this help Leclerc close up? Dependent. It seems like it might be more for last year.
Yeah.
What happens? And then from Humperdinck, how does F1 keep track of all that spent? Isn't it possible to fudge the numbers like any business? And I'll throw out this second part of the question. Could they try to say, well, the parts went up and that forced us over. We didn't spend more, just the part prices because of inflation.
Yeah. They could easily say that, to be fair. And COVID would have played a factor into it as well. But mainly as well, the problem is with this budget cap, it's designed for everybody to have the same amount, 145 million, and it's more for less teams, it's more for higher teams as well in terms of where you can spend your money. So it is a big deal because it's part of the Concord Agreement that keeps all the teams in Formula One. It's like a gentleman's agreement, you don't break it. So this is a big deal, and it would have an effect on last year than this year, because this year has been a whole new regulation change. I did find it interesting that Toto Wolff did say, however, that we are using old parts, spare parts, and Red Bull are using brand new parts as well. And considering Mick Schumacher didn't race in Saudi Arabia, not due to his incident, but because they couldn't afford a crash, because 2 weeks' time was Australia and they didn't have any spares, it is quite interesting how Red Bull keep affording all this stuff.
Very interesting stuff. And of course, Max Verstappen, one of the big things, if he finishes ahead of Leclerc and Perez by several positions, he could wrap up the championship. But of course, right now, he's starting 8th place. This track, very demanding. Potentially is going to be a wet track, wet conditions. We've seen Max Verstappen this year come as far back as 14th place to take the win. Joshua, do you see him doing that in Singapore under potentially wet conditions?
It was always going to be a bit of an outside guess, but now starting 8th on the grid with wet conditions possibly tomorrow, no, I don't see him doing it tomorrow. I do see this championship going down to Japan in a week's time as the more perfect fitting place to win a championship with a Honda engine in the back as well. And also, I personally love it because it just rubs more salt into the wound for Megan, because Alonso was destroyed by Honda engines and they're about to win with a Honda engine at their home circuit in Japan. It's just brilliant for me, and well worth Megan having to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning to commentate on that Japanese Grand Prix in a week's time.
Fernando's getting ready to head to Aston Martin, who are now in a controversy of their own. It's like everywhere he goes, he can't escape the controversy. Even as soon as he leaves, they're, Honda's off winning championships now in the back of these Formula One cars. If it's going to happen tomorrow, it's going to be because we see a repeat of 2017 and Perez and Leclerc go off and retire in the opening lap, and Verstappen comes from deep in the field to win the race somehow. I don't see that happening. Is it possible? Yes. But practically speaking, I think we're probably going to see the title go on to Japan, and then Verstappen will probably clinch it there.
And of course, Japan, that'll be the following race. One driver that probably is really excited about this race, especially if it's under wet condition, has to be Lewis Hamilton. With the mixture of condition, his teammate George Russell got knocked out in Q2. He was still on intermediates while other drivers were switching over to the slicks. With the rain in the forecast tomorrow, and this being a street course, making a mistake, a small one, could end your race. Lewis Hamilton, 3rd behind Perez and Charles Leclerc. Both of them we know have faster cars compared to the Mercedes. But Lewis Hamilton, he knows how to win the wet conditions. We all remember his weather race win at Turkey. Overall, it seems like he could be in the prime spot to get another win and his first of the year. Lewis did say if he didn't continue the streak, if he didn't win a race, it wasn't a big deal. But let's be honest, every driver wants to go out there, get a win. Ben, is this Lewis' best chance of earning that win this year?
Yeah, I mean, Lewis can say that, and, I know that it's not going to be the complete end of the world. Obviously, he's arguably the greatest driver of all time already, stats-wise. There we go. I mean, I don't think it's like, this is a major blow to his legacy if this streak ends. I mean, he's got nothing left to prove in Formula One, and he's one of the greats. So, I mean, is it a tragic, awful deal? No, but he would. I mean, let's be honest. He wants to win. He wants to continue this streak, even if he says otherwise. I do think that this is one of his best chances to do so. You see him right there. He's already starting in P3, and like we said, he won the race in 2017 when a couple of Ferraris and Verstappen got together, and that basically swung the championship and all the momentum his way to go on to win the championship that year. So, I think it certainly is a possibility that he could win this weekend. And I do think that it's one of his best shots. I know Josh has been keeping track of some other circuits that might be on Mercedes' list where they could potentially pull it out. So, again, I'll defer to you on that one. You can give your thoughts and opinions there, Josh. But I think this particular weekend is a really golden opportunity for Lewis, particularly if the weather cooperates in terms of what favors his driving style as well, because we know that he is very good in the wet. And, I think that could even further play to his advantages.
Yeah, Singapore was the one we've all been looking at and saying, this is it. This is the one that Mercedes can have a genuine shot to win. It's reassuring to see that he's on 3rd on the grid by 0.054 of a second off the top of my head, because it was exactly the same difference between Leclerc and Perez, and it was Perez to Hamilton as well, because it was 0.022 to Leclerc Perez, Hamilton and Perez's gap was 0.022 as well. So add that together, it's 0.054, whatever it was, 44 maybe. Anyway, getting away from that, Japan is an outside shot for them to win. That's more of a Red Bull and Ferrari circuit, has been for a couple of years now. America, COTA, Lewis has won there quite a lot in the previous years. That's a good track for them. Mexico, high altitude, not going to work with their current car. Brazil, I think, is their last best opportunity if they still haven't won a title. Short, speedy track. Lewis has a lot of fun there as well. He likes the challenge of the circuit at Interlagos. So if it's not here, it's going to be Brazil. That'll be my guess for the title hopes as well for Lewis earning a win this year. But 2007, 103 wins, 103 pole positions in 305 Grand Prix starts. I mean, come on, it's a brilliant record. But if Lewis says that records don't mean anything to him, I don't believe it. Does a sprint race count? No, sprint races are a completely different table that I don't even actually have on my board, actually. So thanks for reminding me, because I've got wins, but I haven't got sprint wins on there. But either way, Bottas is the champion of those at the moment. He's got 3. Verstappen's got 2, maybe 4. Can't remember, actually.
Yeah. Think of it like a stage win in NASCAR. It doesn't count towards your career wins total. It's a stat that, the diehards really keep track of. And, it's on the books somewhere. But in terms of, I won a race, or I've won in the Cup Series, nobody really talks about stage wins the way they talk about race wins. Sprint races are the same way in Formula One.
Yeah, talk to me after 30 races next year, which is 24 races, 6 sprints, and then 42 MotoGP races as well. Half of them sprints. I think I'm going to go insane with sprint races next year. I don't like them at all. It devalues it, and I think they're just a fad. Well, they'll be gone in 2-3 years because everyone will realize that they're absolutely pointless. And this generation of younger people actually do have the attention span, not just of a goldfish, that older generation seem to as well. So, yeah, there we go.
Going to be really interesting to see what happens with Lewis Hamilton, Brazil, the next sprint race weekend. And of course, you mentioned MotoGP, that's next. And wow, they're going to have sprint race in every race. It's going to be crazy to see what MotoGP is doing. But of course, MotoGP right now, they're in Thailand.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of hoping sprint racing would go the way of the 2016 elimination qualifying, where it was so unspeakably bad that they recognized that after just, 4 races, and they were able to scrap it in the middle of the season. It seems like they've doubled down on sprint racing, unfortunately, in my eyes, because I'm with you, Josh. I'm not a fan of it at all. But we'll get to that in MotoGP in a second. Of course, Joe, like you mentioned, they'll be doing that every race next year. This particular weekend, though, another MotoGP weekend led to another Ducati front row. This time it was Marco Bezzecchi claiming his first pole. He's a 10th pole sitter in 2022. That sets the record for a single season. Bagnaia is 3rd. The second row has Quartararo in 4th as well. Zarco and Bastianini follow in 5th and 6th. You see the rest of the top 10 there on your grid. Now, Aleix Espargaro did not make Q2. Josh, I want to ask you about him first. Are his championship hopes rather slipping away?
Yeah, horrible weekend in Japan a week ago as well, where his bike failed on the way to the grid and had to swap over as well. Qualified 6th, was 17 points back from Quartararo, and then had to fight back up to only score 1 point as well. He's now about 22 points back. So not even qualifying for Q2 was a big deal here today as well. And he was kicked out by Carl Crutchlow. So well done. Thumbs up. And then Crutchlow eventually fell back down again with a lap time deletion. But the damage was done because other people went back up there as well. So Marc Marquez strayed through as well. But for Aleix Espargaro, unfortunately, his title hopes pretty much are done now. It's a 3-way fight between... actually, no, forget that. It's a 2-way fight. It's Quartararo versus Bagnaia. Bastianini's trying his hardest, but he's out of it. So is Aleix Espargaro. 2-way fight for the end of the season.
And I see we have a couple of comments from Demas here. I think we have...
Presume that'll be amazing Thailand and amazing Buriram as well.
Yes. Yep, and of course, what a first pole position student, Valentino Rossi. Josh, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, Marco Bezzecchi. I mean, we've had Luca Marini on the front row this year as well, but Bezzecchi taking his first ever pole position. Of course, one of the big Valentino Rossi fans, a development driver of his as well. Races for the Mini VR 46 bike as well. Brilliant to see him on pole position with that as well. And it was a very, very quick time at Rotterdam as well. And we all thought Jorge Martin was going to have it. We did think that Marc Marquez might, but then he had to go through Q1 after Jack Miller crashed in FP3 and sort of spoiled everybody's run for a last lap. And that sort of disjointed the runners' order. So Miller was a bit of a punching bag in the paddock after that one for causing that. So it's a disjointed grid, but not because of rain, because of Jack Miller's fault. So, Miller's not exactly popular right now in the paddock, unless you're Kyle Crutchlow when you're busy mates with him.
Well, the last race weekend, Quartararo and Bagnaia were both mid-pack. This weekend, they're both up front, and there are more points on the line. If Pecco wins, Quartararo must finish 8th or better to keep the points lead. So, Joe, I'll go to you first on this one. Who's under more pressure right now? Is it Fabio Quartararo or is it Pecco Bagnaia?
It's interesting. I would normally say Fabio Quartararo. He hasn't been running well lately. We've been seeing Pecco Bagnaia get into wins. However, after the last race weekend, that was the first time we saw Pecco Bagnaia not starting in the front row, not starting towards the front. He made some progress, but then at the end, when he tried to, on the last lap, get one, Quartararo made the mistake. He could have easily just been 12 points behind. If that was the case, I believe he needed Quartararo to finish 5th or worse to obtain the points lead, but now it's 8 or worse if he wants to obtain the point lead from Quartararo. So I do get a sense that Pecco Bagnaia is feeling some pressure too. If he gets a good clean start and focus on the race, I think he's going to go out there, potentially get the win, and he can't worry about this championship. He has to know, do what you got to do, race your own race. Don't worry about Quartararo. If he has a poor start for some reason and Quartararo's around him and he's 4th, 5th, or further back, I think he's going to feel more pressure, and that's where it could be more acceptable to making a mistake. So overall, I feel like Pecco Bagnaia, he's still feeling some pressure, but Quartararo, I mean, we're all amazed with what he's done with that Yamaha. He could almost feel maybe less pressure because, like, hey, we're exceeding what we were expected to do. Let's keep this up.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Quartararo sort of bounced back in the past couple of races as well after Bagnaia and Ciccone won 5 in a row. So I'm thinking as well that Bagnaia sort of writing was on the wall as soon as he crashed in Japan. I went absolutely nuts in the commentary as well about that one, as I told you all about last week in that video. So Bagnaia is under more pressure than Quartararo, but Bagnaia is going to be fast. Starts 3rd in the grid, Quartararo 4th. 17 points between them, did you say it was as well? If Pecco wins, Quartararo must be 8th or better to keep the points lead. The game is on. It's going to be great. And with such close racing in now, I think this race is honestly going to go down to Valencia. And to be fair, bring it on. I'm all up for that. We've needed this battle for so long. And considering that we were all falling asleep at the start of the season with MotoGP, we've woken up since the summer break, and fair play to him. Pecco Bagnaia has all slapped us in the face and given us a wake-up call that we needed. And Quartararo's sort of been slumping like he's a fish that's just seen the hook with some bait on it. Did that make sense? I think it did. This is what happens when being up since 3 a.m. commentating on loads of different series and having to do Singapore. I'm dreading tomorrow as well. And I'm also on Talladega. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm on pit reporter role though for Talladega, so not too bad.
Well, one story this week that came out, Josh, I know you've been looking forward to this one. The MotoGP calendar for 2023, Kazakhstan and India have both joined the calendar, meaning 2023 will see a 21 race schedule. 42 total races for you to commentate on, Josh, if you include the sprint races.
Yeah.
Qatar now moves to the second to last round. Portugal, Argentina, and the United States will make up the first 3. The round at Kazakhstan will be held on July 9th before a month-long break until the British Grand Prix. So, Josh, the calendar for next year compared to F1 doesn't have too many triple headers, but it does have 21 sprint races for you. What are your thoughts on the calendar and a couple of new additions we have here?
It's one of the worst calendars I've ever seen. It really is. I mean, it's too much. It's too much MotoGP. It's too much Formula One. Why is more better? It's ridiculous. I mean, 21 races is pushing the boat for MotoGP an awful, awful lot. And I don't know why we're racing. I can see why we're racing in India. Okay, I can see that. But considering that we're racing at the Bud International Circuit, I hope MotoGP has the local tax form, which is all I'm going to say to that, because that's what cost Formula One racing there. But India is a big market for motorcycles, so it makes sense for them to have a race there. don't know why we're in Kazakhstan. I mean, that is just bizarre. And it's the same day as the British Grand Prix. Does anybody have a time difference for Kazakhstan, please? Because otherwise, is it the same time as the Formula One race? Am I missing 2 races next year? I don't know, because am I missing 3 actually? Because I'm not even doing a couple, because I'm already having to miss the Italian Grand Prix because it's slap bang with Le Mans, so I won't be doing that one. They're going to be covering that. Kazakhstan slap bang with Formula One's British Grand Prix, and obviously you know where I'm going to go there. And in terms of the end of the season, it's all a bit skew-whiff. I mean, it's just not the smooth calendar we've come to expect. So I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not a fan. I'm happy. I was happy with the 18 races we had for MotoGP. That felt like enough for me. And the same goes for Formula One. These expansion to calendars, all this sprint series as well, it'll come crashing down because there's only so much people can take before they stick up the middle finger and tell the management to go up themselves. And that's it. It's all done. Because the further we have with calendars, the further people are away from families, the further traveling as well. It's not like NASCAR where it's mathematically possible because it's all in the United States of America. We're traveling across the globe 21 times a year. It doesn't make sense. The only good thing about that calendar is it got rid of one of the Spanish rounds because there's 4 of them. Next year there's only 3, but still that's 3 too many. Why do we need Spanish Grand Prix, Catalan and Valencia? Get rid of Catalan because it's always a dull race. In fact, even Spain is always a dull race. So just put Catalan up as the Spanish Grand Prix and put Valencia on as something of a Spanish Grand Prix. I don't know. But the calendar is a mess. It makes no sense whatsoever from a logistical standpoint. And considering that sports are promising to go net zero or carbon neutral, MotoGP and Formula One's calendars are Greta Thunberg nightmares. It just doesn't make sense. It is some of the worst calendars I've ever seen. And also, as the commentator on many different series, next year, I don't know when I'm going to be free anymore because there's always something on. Next year, I think it's going to be the busiest year I've ever had. And I said that about this year. I haven't had a break since April. And now we're already in October. I mean, it has gone quick, but we all suffer with burnout, don't we? It's just too much to keep covering. So I will be dropping some races next year because I just can't do them all physically. And not in terms of the fact that I don't want to. It's just the fact that I won't be there. So if I'm dropping them, then casual viewers are going to switch off like that. So yeah, calendars need to be shrunk. Get rid of Kazakhstan. Don't know why we're going there. The track looks a bit boring anyway from what I've seen from rear wheel shots. And everything else looks okay. Disappointed that Indonesia has dropped so far down because that was actually the only new track I actually really, really liked. Indonesia was fantastic as round 2 of the season, but now they've put Portugal there, which doesn't really make sense for MotoGP. Argentina's somehow still got a race. America is there because it's the only one there, even though I'd much rather race at Laguna Seca for motorcycles as well. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the MotoGP calendar. Once again, just like F1, it's a load of rubbish, in my opinion. Not as good as what we had before.
You know, I saw a tweet earlier this week. I think there's one sector of Mercedes organization with their team that I think has achieved being carbon neutral, and they were celebrating that and talking about how this is one step closer to Formula One being carbon neutral. You know what I think would help Formula One's carbon footprint? Not having 24 races next year. I think that would be a major blow to their carbon footprint to have that many races, but they still insist on continuing to do it, and they're doubling down on sprint races now and the resources that you need for that. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. You can talk about wanting to be carbon neutral and wanting to protect the environment all you want. You know, there's no way around it. Obviously, in motorsports, it's a sport that, you know, is going to do some harm with, you know, that's just the nature of it, and we have to accept that and be okay with that. But at the same time, there are steps we can take to minimize that and mitigate, you know, the harm that we're doing. And having 24 races when we've had 17 in the past or 19 in the past, and the seasons have been just as good, I don't understand how that helps matters. And then that doesn't even get into the burnout that people like you are going to face, Josh, with how many races are on your schedule next year. And it's inevitable that you're going to have to drop a couple. We're going to get burnt out talking about all the different action going on. And you brought up a good point as well. You know, people always talk about NASCAR, and, you know, I think 36 races is too much for NASCAR. But, you know, at the bare minimum, all those races are here in the United States. Yeah. So, you know, to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, you know, that's enough of a hardship on some of these teams, especially in the, you know, Xfinity Series and Truck Series and smaller teams like that. You know, to ask, like, the schedule to end Formula One next year, we're going from Las Vegas to Abu Dhabi in a week. to end the season. Are you kidding me? It just makes absolutely no sense. And I hope that they take a look at that for 2024 and beyond. And hopefully teams will start to stand up after going through next season. Like maybe they can do that for 1 year next season, but then make it clearer to the FIA, make it clear to people making the calendars that we can't continue to do this and make this a regular thing here.
Annoyingly, it was announced today that they're even planning on a 25 is now the maximum limit, even though a few years ago we told us 24, then it was 23, then it was 22, then it was 21, then it was 20. It keeps going up and up and up in each year. And to be fair, I think Stefano Domenicali is one of the worst people we've ever had in charge of Formula One. Worse even than Bernie, because at least Bernie got things done, and Bernie was like, this is how many races we're having, that's it. Nobody's coming in. Domenicali is like, welcome, yes, open the door. You want to race, everybody gets a Grand Prix. He's Oprah. He's gone insane. So
he's Oprah for countries, but not for American racing drivers.
Yeah. Just like with the books that Oprah has as well. If you don't have the special F1 license sticker, you can't read it. It doesn't exist. Nothing. No. Colton Herta, who's he? Who's he? No idea. It's ridiculous.
I think I've heard him float out the idea of 30 races or something like that, but we'll see. I mean, we still have a long way to go before we get there. I think people might revolt if we get to that kind of number on the F1 calendar. Josh, before we let you go, what are your pick-a-winners as we bring the pick-a-winner standings back up here again?
Right.
We've got Formula One, MotoGP, NASCAR. I know you've already given yours for W Series, but who are you picking to win this weekend across the board?
Formula One, I am going for Lewis Hamilton. I think this could be a weekend he could do it. Starts third on the grid. Wet conditions. The Mercedes is looking good this weekend. I'm going for him. In MotoGP, I'm going to have to go the way of Pepper Bagnaia just because I know how fast that Ducati can be. Outside shot would be Marc Marquez. Don't bet him out as well. He was top in practice 1 and practice 4. So don't go out on him too much. For NASCAR, I'm going to go with Joey Logano. Don't know why. Finished second last weekend at Texas. I think he's got a shot here this weekend at Talladega, and I'm very much looking forward to the Super Speedway as well, to which point I will be watching Talladega Nights tonight as well, because you just can't not. So, excuse me, I'm going to go put my friend out of the invisible fire.
Josh, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the show, and see you tomorrow.
As Joshua mentioned, Talladega, Alabama for the NASCAR Cup Series, the Yellowwood 500. Everyone is usually a bit on the edge at the super speedways of Daytona and Talladega. However, gentlemen, it feels like this time it's different, as many are nervous, and I would even say scared. The hard hits from the Cup Series drivers that they've been experiencing lately got a lot of folks concerned about this weekend, because we know the kind of crashes that happen here. Those concerns got more real when Alex Bowman was announced on Thursday he would not be in the 48 this weekend due to concussion-like symptoms. Bowman had a tire blowout in Texas Motor Speedway. Back then, the car hit the wall. It didn't look like the hardest outside from the cameras, but he called it the hardest hit he's experienced. Noah Gragson will be in the 48 and has said he will be racing 80% in these cars to avoid crashing. Gragson, of course, had that hard hit in Atlanta earlier this year. Justin Allgaier will be in the number 62 in replacement of Noah Gragson. All my years of watching races here in Talladega, I've seen Rusty Wallace flying across the finish line. He got hurt, but he climbed out of the car. Ricky Craven flying into the catch front turn 1. He got hurt, but he continued to race. 2 times I've seen this race caution-free. Once with Mark Martin winning it, and the other one with Bobby Hamilton. I cannot ever remember being so nervous and concerned about the safety of drivers entering Talladega. And we're even seeing drivers like Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, calling out and criticizing NASCAR, the governing body, for putting everyone in this position. Matt, starting with you, can anything be done to ease everyone's nerves about the safety of the drivers this weekend?
Also, I want to say, by the way, I'm still here. It's been an hour, but I'm still here. But I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, if anything can ease what's going to happen. I mean, just on Twitter now, our very own Kobe Lambeth messaged us saying that even guys like Kyle Larson just said he feels more safe in a sprint car than the next-gen car. In an interview with Denny Hamlin, one of the biggest critiques of NASCAR in general, not just the safety, they asked him, what do you think can be done or what's happening? He said, there's bad leadership. And they're like, how can we improve going forward? And he's like, new leadership. So it's like Denny Hamlin's clearly not having a good, hates NASCAR right now where it is with safety. And he also said that he wants a complete redesign overhaul of the next gen car, says that it happened too quick. So, I mean, I kind of agree with Denny Hamlin there in terms of the speed, but I don't know what can ease the nerves of these drivers. I guess the only thing you can is looking back on it. There have been no deaths in 21 years in the sport, and that's really all you can keep in mind in the back of your head when you're going 195 miles per hour at one of the most dangerous super speedways in all of motorsport. So I really don't know what NASCAR can say, what they can do, but because clearly there is no trust between the drivers and the sport and the higher up officials. Even Daniel Suarez said, this is one point I will make, as Daniel Suarez said in an interview, he said in these big crashes, like the big ones, he says he does feel more safe because of like what happened at Daytona when the rain came out. But he also said like these little impacts, not so little, but like Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, like Kurt Busch has been done for a very long time now with concussion, and it could be likely the end of his racing career. And Alex Bowman got concussion-like symptoms simply from just hitting the back of the car. So clearly there are weaknesses we are seeing in this next-gen car, and a lot of it is from behind, not so much front. I mean, we saw Harrison Burton flip. He was fine. Christopher Buescher flipped. He had COVID, but obviously those are not related to this to each other, getting COVID from flipping in NASCAR. But he was fine too, health-wise. And you just see all this stuff happen. I'm not sure what NASCAR can do, if anything, to ease these drivers' emotions heading into Talladega in about 24 hours.
Joe, I know you're just asking me because you saw me reacting backstage. I have the truck race on in the background now that they're on the last lap of stage one, and we just saw. I looked at my TV. By the time I saw it, he was already, there was a fire in the truck, and he was already spinning out. Jordan Anderson, I think he's in the 3 truck this week. I know it's his truck. He just had a massive fire and spun out to the inside wall and was trying to get out of the truck, and it looked like he was like partially out of the truck as he hit the inside wall. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before. It looks like they're attending to him now, so we'll keep an eye on that. But that just continues to speak. I mean, this is happening in the truck race the day before here. So I mean, if we're seeing incidents like this, in vehicles that we haven't heard very many safety concerns about the trucks, this season. Obviously they're still using a vehicle that is more or less the same as what they've used for the last several years, whereas the Cup Series have a brand new, radically different car that has had these concerns about safety for a long time now. It's just not. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here and find the right words. But it can't make you feel good as a driver to be watching this, the day before, and then to have it in the back of your mind that, I mean, we saw the wreck with Alex Bowman last week. That just looked like, a little half spin into the wall, backing into the outside wall there. That doesn't look too concerning. It looks fairly innocent, but, it's put him out of the race this week, and it could have ruined his championship chances entirely. So, there's a lot. There's got to be a lot on the minds of these drivers right now. The one thing that you can do is what they did in 1969, and that's stage a walkout. I think that's a little extreme. I saw a tweet yesterday from Brad Keselowski saying that he was committed to race, he wanted to race, and he wouldn't support the idea of doing that. But I think it's not unreasonable to consider all different directions to go in at this point, because I mean there are genuinely a lot of concerns here. I know we've raced at super speedways 3 times already this year, 5 if you want to include the 2 Atlanta races. And everybody's gotten out, relatively speaking, okay. But it's an eerie feeling right now, and I'm with you, Joe. It's been a difficult week to get the news about Bowman, and then to process what that means for the playoffs going forward. And then obviously, at Talladega, the hard hits are always amplified with the speed and everything. So, and then I see Kobe in our chat room now as well, just coming in to confirm awful accident for Jordan Anderson here in the truck race. So it's there's a lot on the minds of these drivers, and all we can do is just hope and pray that everybody gets out of this weekend safely.
Definitely will provide any updates on Jordan Anderson as we hear on his condition. That's the thing. This is giving me a lot of bad vibes to see such a scary crash occurring. If you're a driver, it just has to make you uneasy, and the drivers have been very vocal all weekend. For quite some time, we've been hearing that voice getting louder and louder over the past weeks, and I felt after Texas, it got really loud. As you mentioned, with Bowman, the playoff implications, yeah, we know what those are. He's going to be pretty much must win, but I feel those are just mute compared to the concerns of the safety of these drivers. Now, traditionally, we don't see tires being a big issue here at Talladega Superspeedway, but it has happened before. 2003, lap 4, Ryan Newman had a right rear tire blow on him, causing the big one, over 10 cars, including Dale Earnhardt Jr., who sustained minimal damage but continued racing. Now, the very first Talladega race for the Cup Series in 1969, the winner, Rick Brickhouse. He won it because the regular Cup Series driver said the speedway was too fast, the tires wouldn't hold up, so they walked out. Big Bill France, at the time, he got replacement drivers to go in there and put on the show. But now it's a little bit different. Of course, we have the Drivers' Council that was formed up at the beginning of the year. We have the RTA. They've been around for quite some time, pushing on cost cutting, saving the teams money. So we have two organizations that could counteract NASCAR decisions, and they're much more organized compared to back in 1969 when you had essentially Big Bill France, who controlled the court, controlled the ball, and said you were going to play by what he said or you sit out, but we'll find somebody else. Find it very hard to make it possible to find a field of 43 if the Cup Series drivers were to walk out. Ben, are you surprised the Drivers' Council and the RTA have not been more vocal about the safety of this new car prior to this weekend to potentially force NASCAR into some sort of change?
I'm a little surprised by it. I guess that it's helped that, up until what happened to Kurt Busch, we really hadn't seen any major injuries, despite the reports that, the crash dummy was, not surviving the impact in July. As long ago as July of last year, we were getting those rumors. Thankfully, everybody aside from Kurt Busch and Alex Bowman and I guess Cody Ware now is dealing with some injuries as well. But it's been relatively safe, generally speaking, in terms of injuries putting drivers out of the cars. But at the same time, the hits that we saw Kurt Busch and Alex Bowman take, you wouldn't necessarily expect those to knock a driver out of contention, and have to sit out for several races because of concussion-like symptoms. We certainly wish Alex Bowman the best. Who knows how long he'll be out? I know he's still targeting a return to the Roval next week to keep his playoff hopes alive. But obviously, Kurt Busch has, turned into a very serious situation from how long he's had to sit out. And, at the same time, we've seen hard head-on hits into the wall that, look a lot more serious. But the drivers, they've said that they've been shaken up and the hits were harder than they felt in a Gen 6 car. But we haven't seen anybody miss time because of that. They've walked away, shaken maybe, but, not actually, physically hurt or harmed by it. So, I've got to say, I think it's surprising to me that it's taken this long for drivers to be this vocal about it. For Kyle Larson to say that a sprint car is safer than a Cup Series car, I mean, that's extremely concerning. And, some of these other comments that these drivers have been making, not just, this week, but particularly today, I think I've just been scrolling through Twitter and seeing some more drivers speak up about the level of concerns that they have here. Obviously there's a great slap shoes video on the 1969 Talladega 500 that explains it in much better detail than we've got time to talk about here. But, again, I mean, I don't know. I know we're through qualifying already, and it's a different situation because that was a brand new track, brand new surface, and, a tire that didn't really hold up there. And there were obviously safety as a whole back then was a lot more of a concern than it is today. But we're always looking to innovate in this sport and move forward and take steps forward. And, when it comes to the quality of the racing or, things like that, it's forgivable if you take a step back here or there. You didn't quite nail a package. You look at the data, you prepare for next year. I mean, that's understandable. It's frustrating for us as fans if we don't get as good of a show, but, it happens from time to time. We have to understand that. There's one, part of this sport that you absolutely cannot afford to take a step back on, and that's safety. And unfortunately, it looks like from the Gen 6 to the next gen, the Gen 7 car, it looks like the Cup Series cars have done that. And that's very, very unfortunate. And like I said, I'm still just a little shaken from that Jordan Anderson crash. I don't have the audio. I don't know what exactly is going on here, but that was a very, very scary situation. That's happening in the truck race the day before the Cup race that everybody's been concerned about. We're just all we can do at this point. I think is just hope that everybody makes it out of this weekend okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that every single thing you just said would be pretty much what I would say too, so I can make my point a lot shorter. I appreciate you. And I am also a little bit surprised. Unfortunately, I would hate to say this, but I think that like the RTA and stuff are waiting for something tragic to happen in order to really have something like actually change what's going on. I mean, you have 3 of the chartered drivers out of the 36 who are currently injured right now. You have Bowman, concussion-like symptoms. Kurt Busch has been out for a very long time. And Cody Ware is very injured right now. And it reminds me, too, like of the Jordan Anderson one. I am the only one currently on this show right now that has yet to see it. I just read a tweet from Bob Pockris while I was backstage saying that he was actually unbuckled before he hit the wall. Now, I don't know how extreme it was, but hearing Joe in the chat room and then hearing you, Ben, right now, it was probably a lot worse. So, and then also a helicopter at Dega's getting ready. So I'm very worried at this point. And growing up, I was a big, like, young Matt B. I've yet to experience a driver pass away during a race, and hopefully I never will experience that. But coming up into this race, I have never been more worried in my entire life. I have seen growing up, I was a big Elliott Sadler fan. The M&M's car got me. Loved it. So seeing him wreck at Talladega when I was 2 years old, 3 years old, and seeing him wreck at Pocono when he hit the corner. So I got my iPad notes, but right that corner. In this next-gen car, I don't know if Sadler would still be here today if he wrecked at any of those points. And it makes me very, very worried. It really does. And I just hope NASCAR and the people in the RTA just start listening to Denny Hamlin, who has had injuries where he's hit the wall, broken part of his back, and all that stuff. That was a few years ago, I believe, with that wreck coming off. I think he was with Logano, and then Kyle Busch ended up winning that race. I don't remember if that was at Auto Club, Kansas. I can't remember off the top of my head, but please correct me. And you got to listen to these guys who have been around the sport as long as they have. And an interesting point I want to point out, I was looking at the RTA, just learning about it. I believe Front Row Motorsports is the only chartered team that is not a part of that, which I found that to be very interesting. Not sure why, but that was just a fun fact I wanted to throw out. But yeah, I'm very worried. This is the most we have seen drivers be vocal about the safety of these cars. And I'm just hoping as a fan that, and on Monday when we have a conversation again, that everyone's still alive.
One update from Talladega. So Jordan Anderson's vehicle, as we all know, caught fire. As the truck was coming towards the infield, he was climbing out. It hit the wall. He still managed to climb out of the vehicle, walk on top of the safer barrier. However, he is being airlifted to a local hospital to be treated. So we're definitely thinking of Jordan Anderson. Of course, we encourage everyone, follow us on Twitter at Grid Ranking. Any update we'll have, we'll be posting it online. And this is just, I think it's going to get a lot of folks, especially the drivers, concerned because we're seeing this. We got another race ahead today with the Xfinity Series. We know the Xfinity Series has time in a crash fest. Hopefully we have a safe race. And one of the sad things, as you mentioned, Matthew, it seems like quite often the sport's a reactive sport. When something bad happens, we do something. 1994, when Ayrton Senna passed away, F1 did a ton of changes for all the tracks because they know they couldn't change the car that year. But that's when we started seeing the changes. And then 2000, NASCAR lost 3 drivers after Dale Earnhardt Sr. in 2001 passed. A lot of changes. I would hope we go through Talladega and the rest of the year safely and we get changes to this car so we don't put ourselves in a situation like in the past. It's almost hard to talk about this race. And of course, we've been displaying the entry list. Christopher Bell, he's on the pole. He's in a must-win situation because he's in the bottom 4. The field, though, they're really equalized because, as Larry McReynolds said, you start up your vehicle. If it runs, you have a shot of winning here. The big pack keeps everyone together, but that is where the danger is because one mistake, 12-plus cars are going to be out. 12 drivers we know are going to be racing, trying to advance into the next round. They can secure that spot by getting a win. Everyone else, they want to get a win. This is their best opportunity to get a win, whether it's to attract new sponsors next year, secure a ride for themselves next year, increase their chances of getting a ride or obtaining that sponsor. everyone has a motive to go out there and win. I feel like very few drivers are going to just be sitting in the back, taking it easy. Matthew, it seems like it's hard to talk about who's going to be a favorite to win, but when it comes to this race, what are some of the favorites you see that could be potentially contending for the win?
Yeah, I was going to, before like this all happened, I think one point I was going to definitely make is I was like, it ultimately ends up who's going to survive the race is what I was going to say. But now thinking about that, that's a horrible choice of word on my part because we're so worried about the safety of these drivers. But I want to point out that fun fact I set in the group chat with Twitter. So the winners of the last 4 races in the NASCAR Cup and the Xfinity Series at Talladega were Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Brandon Brown, and Noah Gragson. All of them started in P19, so I find that very funny. So if Joe Graf Jr. wins and Ryan Blaney wins, that's going to be a pretty hilarious statistic. But I think, like in terms of the Cup Series size, I really think anybody can win this race, even Cody Ware being injured starting in the last position of this race. I mean, you got to look at guys like Denny Hamlin, one of the best super speedway racers we've ever seen. You have guys like Ross Chastain who have won here, fast car. You have guys, Bubba Wallace is a former winner of this race last year, first career win in this exact race. I mean, everyone, Joey Logano, all the Fords, really. I mean, Cindric's great at super speedways. I'm going to pretty much start naming the entire roster of the NASCAR Cup Series by saying who are my potential favorites. But I think guys like Logano are going to have great races, Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin. I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Haley in the Colleague Racing 31 has a really great race as well, because he is someone who's been dominant at super speedways in the Xfinity Series. I guess we could see that translate. He hasn't done very well. He did his first career win and only career win in the Cup Series is at Daytona. Obviously, a rain happened, but I think a win's a win, no matter if you finish at the end of stage 2 or if you cross the finish line with the checkered flag flying. And then I would not be surprised if I say Noah Gragson is going to be a potential favorite for today's race. And yes, with the qualifying, thank you for pulling that up. Christopher Bell's great at everything. Kyle Larson, surprisingly, is not the best super speedway driver, but he can win anywhere in any car. Eric Almirola, thank you for reminding me. That's the last point I'll make before I shoot it over to Ben. I think Eric Almirola, someone who has also won at a super speedway, can definitely pull it off here. And then that could be the continuous, he would be the 20th different driver this season to win. I think he could do it. So I'm going to throw that over to Ben now. But out of everyone, pick and choose your favorite. Pick a winner. Anyone I named, but it ended up probably being someone I didn't mention.
Yeah, Blaney or Truex could do that as well. Brad Keselowski's obviously won a lot of times in Talladega. He's always going to be a threat there. It looks like RFK have started to take a step forward. So, I just saw a tweet from Kobe saying, it's tough to even focus on the race right now because obviously there's all these safety concerns. And, we got the update. Jordan Anderson's being airlifted to a hospital, so we certainly wish him all the best. But we'll move on here and, give our pick a winners here in just a minute. But in terms of the Cup Series, Matt, like you were mentioning, it is very, very difficult because, you look at this entire list of drivers here in this field. We even saw Cody Ware running as high as third on the backstretch at Daytona just a few weeks ago because everybody had been taken out in that wreck there. And it allowed some of the backmarker smaller teams to work their way up to the front and, have, career best days for a lot of those drivers and those teams. So, Justin Haley obviously winning this race for Spire, staying out, and then the lightning strike coming. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen at Talladega. So I think anybody that starts this race that can at least hang in the draft has a realistic shot of winning it. So it's very hard to predict a winner, but I guess we'll all try here in just a second.
Okay. Can I make a quick point, Joe? I'm very sorry. So I actually watched qualifying before, and I'm a little worried for the Toyota drivers. We saw Ty Gibbs had an incredibly fast lap, one of the fastest Toyotas besides Christopher Bell. And he had some issues going on. I'm not sure if TRD with power steering once again for the third week in a row had fluid leaking, didn't complete his lap, will likely start in the back of the field after qualifying 10th. So it makes you wonder, even with these safety concerns, you're having drivers. Power steering is a big deal at any track, but when you have a super speedway where you got to constantly be on the wheel, I'm more worried than anything. I just hope this race goes as well as it possibly can go with no drivers injured at the end of the day. But I just wanted to point that out about Ty Gibbs. Fast Toyota, another problem with Toyota again for, I believe, the third or fourth week, not including a Kyle Busch issue, obviously, but power steering, it looks like the fluid was leaking. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think, once again, this is going to be very unpredictable.
You bring up a good point with the mechanical. If you have something else, another fluid that happens to leak on the track and they're on the front of the pack, that could be a huge safety concern. We're definitely thinking of all the drivers and hope for a safe race. Adam Lemery's everyone's going to have a safe race, a smart race. It's just going to be really hard because there's so much on the line compared to when we come here earlier in the year where we're still pretty young in the Cup Series season. Now, one season that is starting to come out towards their end, World Rally Championship, Rally New Zealand. It's down to the final 4 stages tomorrow. Kali Rovanpera has a 29-second lead over second place Sebastian Ogier and Tonic in third place. The big surprise, we've been talking about him all year long because he's the grid ranking leader. Shane Van Gisbergen in a WRC2 vehicle is in 9th place overall in his debut Rally Championship race. If he stays in the top 10, he'll be the first driver in grid ranking history to score points in 2 different series in the grid ranking in the same year. Never been done before. He needs to finish 10th or better overall, not on the stage, but overall tomorrow to make that huge moment. Rovanpera, he could wrap up the World Rally Championship tomorrow, especially since he's in the lead. The others are having trouble. You got Sebastian Ogier, who's running part-time second place, so it's starting to look pretty much like Rovanpera might be another driver to could wrap up the championship this weekend. One title that's not wrapped up and is far from being wrapped up. Pick a winner. Still, we got a lot of races to go. I can see in the standings, Kobe has to lead with 45. And then everyone outside the top 10, this is the final adjustment because this is the final opportunity. If you're outside the top 10, first correct guess is 5 bonus points. So this allows everyone an opportunity to try to get in the top 10. If you get on the hot streak, maybe you could catch up to Kobe, but overall, it's starting to look like it's going to be more a battle to get into the top 5. Matthew, we're starting with you when it comes to Formula One. Who do you see winning that race?
And I'm going to 100% agree with Joshua, and I think Sir Lewis Hamilton, this is his best opportunity to get it done, and it would be awesome to see him continue that streak, both from a journalist perspective and a fan perspective. So I'm going Sir Lewis Hamilton. I think I've only picked Mercedes. They have yet to win. They've had issues, but let's hope my bad luck ends with this one.
This one, I'm going to go with Sergio Perez. I think he's going to drive a smart race, prove his point that he belongs in Red Bull for the remainder of this year, next year, and potentially beyond.
He's not going to clinch the championship, but I don't know. There's something about Max Verstappen. It just looks like he's unstoppable right now. I mean, what's 8th place to him? He's 1 from 10th. He's 1 from further down than that. I think he finds a way to take the victory at Singapore tomorrow, but he's not going to clinch the championship because his rivals will not finish low enough for him to do so. He'll clinch it in Japan, but I don't know how he's going to do it, but he will find a way to win from 8th on the grid tomorrow.
And Kobe Lambeth mentioned that he went with Lewis Hamilton. Now, W Series, we heard Daniel, we heard Joshua's pick. Matthew, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with the points leader and future three-time champion, Jamie Chadwick. This could be a final audition for her to potentially get into another series. So even though starting 8th on the grid, I don't see how she can't do it. I mean, there's a reason she's in the points lead, right? So Jamie Chadwick for me.
Jamie Chadwick's a good pick. I'm going to go with a driver. Hasn't won since 2019, Bicycle Visser. I think she's going to have a smart race. I think she could put the pressure to Marta Garcia and get the win at Singapore.
Well, I will defer to our expert in the W Series, Daniel Zeri. I will also go with Marta Garcia to take, I believe it would also be her first victory since 2019 as well. So I will pick her for the W Series.
W Series, F1, they're both done. But in Thailand, we got MotoGP, all Ducati front row. Matthew, who do you see taking that win?
I'm going to go once again with somebody who's been dominant in the sport, but kind of on a slow stretch here. I'm going to go with Fabio Quartararo. I just think big name there. I mean, I feel like he could win anywhere too. So I'm going to go with him as more of a safe pick. I know he started back on the grid, but I kind of like the underdogs here. So Fabio for me.
Before I share from Kobe, he's going with Alice Powell in the W Series. That's another good pick. MotoGP, I'm going with the points leader, Pecco Bagnaia. He's starting on the front row. Yes, he has 2 Ducatis in front of him, but they're not going to, I think, push him too hard. I think he's going to get the win, but not the points lead.
MotoGP obviously is not a series that I follow as closely like Matthew, but I guess I will go with him as well and say Fabio Quartararo for the win this weekend in MotoGP.
And Kobe went with Pecco Bagnaia as well. So now this leaves us with the Yellowwood 500 NASCAR Cup Series race at Talladega. Matthew, who are you got winning this race?
Yeah, at first I was going to go with last year's winner, but I'm going to go with a random pick here. For me, I think Justin Haley's going to get it done. I mean, out of everyone I was looking at all the research, this guy, Justin Haley, has yet to win this season, has had some great performances. I just hope it'd be awesome. 20th different winner in regular season, 21st overall. If you count Ryan Blaney, I think Justin Haley can get it done at Talladega. I'm
going to go with a random driver because I think this race is going to be about avoiding the big one. If this driver avoids the big one, they're going to shock everyone and I think steal the headlines. I'm going with Noah Gragson in the 48 to get the win. Kobe's going with Brad Keselowski.
Great pick, Joe.
Who are you going with?
You know, Joe, I think I'm going to go even more random than you. I'm going to say the driver that is taking over the seat that Noah Gragson should have been in this week. I'm going to say Justin Allgaier puts the 62 Beard Oil Motorsports car in victory lane. I'm expecting absolute chaos, and I hope for the driver's sake that everything stays safe this weekend. But unfortunately, you know, I'm just thinking back to what happened at Daytona. I have a feeling if Allgaier can avoid the inevitable big one, that 62 car is a lot better than people give them credit for. They only do these 4 races a year, but they always come out. I mean, we saw Brendan Gaughan almost take the lead, and then he ended up flipping a few years ago when he was driving that car. But this is a team that puts all of their effort, all of their resources into these super speedway races. I think Justin Allgaier could shock the world tomorrow and steal one at Talladega.
Trying to steal one. I encourage everyone, be sure to comment with who you think is going to win. Adam puts Max in F1, Chadwick in W Series, Pecco MotoGP, and Kyle Larson in Talladega. Kyle Larson in Talladega, I think that's the first favorite driver. Well, actually, none of us picked playoff drivers, correct? So that's the first person to do so. So
Gregson's team is still in the Owners' Championship, obviously, but yeah. That is interesting.
And we want to thank everyone for tuning in to Grid Live pre-race today, and encourage everyone check out our Patreon link, join Colin the Show, Mark and Robin, invest in the Grid Network. You can do that as well through Buy Me Coffee, one-time contribution like what Edward, Amber, and Zach did. And follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We live stream there, and LinkedIn, where we post opportunities to join our team. And be sure to visit public.com. There, if you use the referral code GridNet, you get free stock to start investing in the stock market, build up your portfolio, and definitely utilize their tools to learn about investing in the stock market. And of course, tomorrow, Grid Life wrap up approximately 90 minutes following the conclusion of the NASCAR Cup Series race. We're going to recap everything we discussed today, plus IMSA at Moto Petit Le Mans, and Monday, Grid Encore with Ben, as you're going to recap Xfinity, Moto2, Moto3, and so on. And then we do it all over again with Grid tonight, Women in Motorsports, and back here again next Saturday. For Matthew Bro and Ben Schneider, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.